speeches for those groups where I'm talking about the differences between incremental and exponential change, what that's doing to our psychological processes and how we handle issues, and then how we need to break down those mental models to be able to incorporate the new information that's coming to us. So that's the keynote. The workshops, actually, I'm doing some new workshops on transformational governance. Tip
Wow.
the hat to Peter Mary.
Absolutely.
I'm attempting to bring in integral theory into the association community.
Wow.
So I'm looking at, of course, spiral dynamics, and I'm looking at Maslow, and I'm looking at integral resilience and building training programs for association executives and boards so they can bring a more integral perspective into their organizations that are primarily focused on what's good for the industry or the profession, and they're member focused instead of remembering there's a fourth quadrant, which is societal responsibility. So we're going to do some workshops on integral theory and associations, and then more about handling change and breaking down, truly understanding what's happening, and preparing ourselves for the fact that we don't know anything anymore. And no matter how deep our expertise is in any one of our particular professions that we've built, we have to really jettison the idea of expertise at this point. And unlearn. We have to unlearn more than we learn, really, at the moment. So So I get to travel around and do that. And we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens from here with what happens. But yeah, so I get to speak for the Texas Society of Association Executives and the International Association of CPAs. I'm speaking for them. So yeah, so it's fun.
You sound, well, very busy, and I'm glad that you're having fun doing it. Now, we've talked about before, I think it was Ray Kurzweil who was being brought into Canada and UK somewhere to do some kinds of presentations to help prepare the way, as well as we accelerate into these next few years, not many years, but these few years. Does your work have any kind of relation to some of the things that he's doing or some of the information he's talking about? And if so, how?
Absolutely. When we're looking at, Ray Kurzweil's predictions about the singularity, about the moment when artificial intelligence will exceed human intelligence, which is not that far off. And he's also very cognizant and aware of the impact that that's going to have on the employment market worldwide. So his writings are very important. His books are fabulous. How to Build a Mind is one of them. He's written a number of books that I think are very important. So when I'm talking to associations, I'm trying to prepare them for the fact that 47% of the United States workforce is likely to be significantly impacted or replaced. 77%, I believe, in China. If I'm remembering correctly, it's in the 60s and 70s for China and India. Yeah. And so, those are huge societal issues. And if one of the reasons why we're seeing these governments, Canada, the Netherlands, a couple other places, experimenting and piloting the idea of universal basic income is because of this wave of automation that governments are beginning to understand are going to radically redefine what it means to work. And how are we going to bridge the gap between people with skills where they are and then where they need to get to in order to survive in a marketplace where, AI is doing many, many, many things. I mean, I like to joke about the fact, but it's true, Watson's being deployed in hospitals and in medical practices, and its diagnosis rate is better than human doctors because it can see more. It has big data to pull from. It can find 10 cases out of millions that match, which a doctor simply can't keep in their heads. It's also being deployed in insurance firms. One in Japan just eliminated 34 employees, claims
Oh,
processors,
wow.
because Watson's coming in to do that. Watson's moving into the legal profession. There are a number of robo-lawyers that are starting up.
Robo lawyers. Here we
Yeah,
go.
robo-lawyers. They're out there. There's one 19-year-old kid, I think, who designed an app for people to use when they're coming into the States to access our immigration laws so they can get help. It was particularly helpful when the flights were banned a few months ago
Wow.
from coming into the United States. And so they deployed an app with an artificial intelligence basis because there weren't enough immigration lawyers to get to the thousands of people who needed them. So, I like to joke, but it's true that eventually, Watson's going to make your diagnosis, process your insurance claim, and sue itself.
Mm-hmm.
And so what do the people do in the meantime? Well, doctors need to work on bedside manner. They need to work on the psychology of interacting with the patient. If they have their time and diagnosis being better spent and more accurately spent, then what are they going to spend their time on? Well, hopefully it's patient education and patient assistance and sort of a more human, more compassionate medical system. So I don't see AI coming in and creating a compassionless society unless corporate interests decide that the AI is enough and the people are no longer necessary. So I think, like anything, it's how you use it and how you apply it. And could it make people's lives better? Absolutely. Is it going to be disruptive on a scale that we have never even seen? Absolutely. So, Kevin Kelly likens it to, we just created fire. And everything we've done since then was like, we created fire. Well, we just created fire again. What is that next transformation going to look like? And when you put it in that kind of anthropological terms, suddenly, it's like, oh, wait a minute, it's not just smartphones. We're going so far beyond smartphones. So it's going to be interesting. But associations, colleges, universities, everybody needs to really grapple with this. Yeah.
Well, more than a few things. There's been, I think we've talked about this before, there's been discussions not only from Ray, but also from, what's the guy from Tesla?
Elon Musk.
Thank you. Yes. He had the article at the beginning of the year about humans, kind of bionic man is in my mind, but migrating with technology. I mean, we look at the competition. I've had some small conversations with students here in China, and some of them work in the technological industries, and some of them, I think most of them who I've spoke to seem to be aware, but then there's others who just kind of have the mindset, oh, well, that's still, years down the line. And so I'm there's a lot of kind of subconscious conversation that's happening with how many of them are aware, how much information do they know of what's going on up top to the bottom, and all these different thoughts are coming to mind. So anyway, I want to just kind of come back to the question of human migration with technology, and what's your thoughts about this?
Well, it's this is a long time coming. And so as these things surface, they do surface sort of in the unconscious, and they surface at the subconscious level, and then we have to consciously grapple with them when they become real and available, right? Because up until then, it's just theory. However, there are people who are making the argument that we've already crossed that bridge. We're just not aware of it because of our dependence on our electronic devices as it is. So we've already taken a baby step towards merging with technology because of the dependence that we've developed upon it. It's not that far of a jump to go to implantable and ingestible tech.
Mm-hmm.
So there are numbers of little things that are going on. Like there was one fellow who was experimenting. He implanted earbuds and speakers inside of his ears so that he could hear music because he didn't want to wear his headphones.
Mm-hmm.
They have chips that you can install for security reasons that transmit your business card information back and forth to someone else who has the chip, or you can open your door with your hand because the electronic lock is keyed into your hand. So those things are already coming. We knew that neural interface was being worked on. I mean, we've heard about the Stentrode project and we've heard about other projects. But when someone like Elon Musk comes out and says, hey, yeah, and he started making noises about this last fall. And I was kind of like, just kind of waiting because I heard this, yeah, we're going to make an announcement. And then they made it in February. When someone like Elon Musk says, yeah, we're working on a neural interlace, they're working on it and they intend to roll it out. And I think they're going to be successful. And the reason is we run on electricity, chips run on electricity. It's not that big a jump anymore. We're creating chips right now that mimic hardware. In hardware, they mimic wetware. Wow. So they have synaptic connections. They have neurons inside of them. The IBM True North chip is an example of that. So now's the time to start having the conversations about body modification. Google has their ocular implant that they've got a patent on now, where they remove your lens and put in a solar-powered Google lens that's connected to the internet. So,
my knowledge was just at the glasses. I didn't realize that they actually now.
Yep. And it'll have a 3D augmented display that'll show up in the world around you. Virtual reality, you may not even need a headset after a while. You may just have, programs going into your brain that make the reality you would like. So I may be able to live in Rivendell. Who knows? But the question is, how do we as humans deal with that? And there are humans like me who go, no, I think that's a little much. Like, I don't know that I want the NSA in my head. It's bad enough that they're on my browser.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And yet, Kevin Kelly and other philosophers are saying that's your generation. But when it becomes a competitive advantage and all the kids in school have chips that help them think faster than your kid, that the human impulse is to compete.
Right.
I don't know that it's inevitable. I feel that it might be.
Sure.
And so, another question is, if artificial intelligence gets so far beyond us that we're no longer a part of it in any way, shape, or form, does it simply outstrip us and we become just, I don't know, observers? I don't know. It's these things are so huge, and I know it sounds crazy to think about these things, but there's tons of professional societies out there. Companies like Google and Facebook are building, ethics organizations to focus on the ethics of AI and these things. But the genie is out of the bottle. I mean, I don't know if you saw the article I just posted yesterday, but apparently Google's AI has written its own AI.
No, I didn't see.
Yeah, it's like
one of the three, or is this a separate
thing?
Separate
thing. But it's writing its own AI programs, its own deep learning programs. So I know I have data on the wall over there, so I'm obviously hooked into this stuff. But what happens to the creator-creation relationship?
Yeah.
Is that we consider that parental? Will an AI, if it attains consciousness, consider that parental? If it writes an AI program, what does that even mean? So, we have a lot, the genie is gone. It's just out of the bottle. Now we're really need to hang on for the ride and try to be more human than human.
Yeah.
So
As much sense that doesn't make it, it makes much sense given the context of where we are.
mm-hmm. Yeah, we tried to turn humans into machines for many, 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 many years, and we put them in factories, and we did horrible things, and now we have to learn how to be human again. And we can't do that with, that's one of the reasons why Ubiquity is so important, because they recognize ancient knowledge, they recognize wisdom, they recognize things that are part of the human experience that we have shoved off into the corner and just called, oh, just go liberal arts, or just go, play in your corner over there. The rest of us don't need that, but man, I think we need it more than ever. Absolutely. To learn how to think, not what to think, how to think. Absolutely. And that's a huge issue that I'm hoping Ubiquity can help solve. So,
in one of the articles you sent me from Citibank, the 3 things that they highlighted as a response to automation and what have you was the originality, creativity, and social intelligence. And even as I've thought about that, given the new information that you just shared, it almost seems obsolete. It's amazing to see how fast and how quick technology is moving. And that was 2 months ago. Well, the article was last year, but still, it seemed like it had some relevance then. And I also shared that with a group of students. And given the competition, even in learning English and trying to improve language and connection and doing more international business, and while we're out there now in all the weirdness, so I'll just go there. We talk about the TNT, if we get shut down, we just get shut down. But it deserves to be acknowledged and talked about. We talk about the TNTs and targeted neuroplasticity training, and how that technology is supposed to enhance learning and enhance those who are learning language in particular, and absorbing that information a lot quicker and being able to use it. My mind has circulated around that more than a few times as I think about being in a very competitive area, and the frustrations that people are already feeling like, I'm not getting this, I'm not learning this language. The options of saying, hey, while learning, when you can just program it into your brain and you got it.
Yeah.
And of course, all the other byproducts of having the advantages. I'm with you. I'm not sure how to respond to that, but I mean, you almost want to say, yes, inevitable. When we live in as competitive of a world that we live in developed countries and in developing countries.
That's right.
To close that gap, to close that bridge in terms of access and everything else that comes with access in this world, it just seems inevitable that it's going to be an option, and that there's going to be many people who take that option because, as much as I hate to say it, there's still this idea that money makes the world go round, and
until that system changes, and until the concept of capitalism is the inevitable outcome of capitalism. I just don't see, if it's a money-based system and we're scrapping for funds,
yes,
and there's less jobs than ever, so the competition's even fiercer, it seems like an inevitable outcome.
Right.
If we could change the way we think about resource acquisition, do we really need all the material things that we think we need?
Right.
Are there more natural ways we could live in concert? with the planet. You know, if we could change some of those social dynamics, we might make different choices. But right now, with the engine that we have, which is the only way you get the necessities of life, I think that system funnels you into a track that you might want to reject but not be able to. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So, you know, I'm not necessarily of a proponent of either or the other thing. I'm not, you know, if I guess if you had to put a label on me, I'm somewhat socialistic in some respects.
Yeah.
But you know, I see these large systems as almost having lives of their own in a way. Conscious capitalism's not conscious, but it may as well be, because it forces us and influences us and drives us to do things that we might not otherwise do.
You know, two things, as you talked about capitalism having its own, or might as well be in its own consciousness. I think about it in the United States, even in our legal language, the protection that companies are now having as human beings and the living, breathing, you know, they deserve, you know, all these kinds of rights. And what we used to think as an inanimate object now is having legal rights. So, I mean, absolutely. I mean, as we talk about redefining what a human being is in context with all of the changes that are going on around us, it makes one have to really think about that.
Mm-hmm. And that, you know, Citizens United in the United States brought that forward because we offered corporations free speech rights.
I didn't know that.
It was the Supreme Court decision, Citizens United, in 2010. Justice Stevens' dissent on that decision is a brilliant piece of work. It's 81 pages, but it's worth a read. But it was Citizens United that opened that door, saying corporations have the right to free speech.
Wow.
And from there, anything, it jumped to corporate personhood. And so that's where the conversation during the 2012 election with Mitt Romney and Barack Obama going back and forth, behind Mitt Romney's just sort of blurting, corporations are people, my friend, you know, what was behind that was this concept that corporations should be able, the corporation should be able to vote. The corporation should have voting rights. Yes, so that's a legitimate, actual discussion that's happening, and I can't even fathom that this is a real thing. But yeah, that the idea of corporate personhood really caught steam during Citizens United, and now I think we're beginning to see some of the unintended consequences. That's one of the reasons why you hear about people saying we need a constitutional amendment, one person, one vote, and corporations are not people. And the fact that we legitimately are trying to amend the Constitution to say corporations are not people shows you how far that discussion went in just 7 years.
Wow.
So, you know, I don't know what's going to happen with it, but I certainly don't think Exxon needs more of a vote than a human being. I just don't.
Bleep.
Yeah. Exactly. And with that, dunk, and we're done. Intellectual freedom, shut it down.
Right. Yeah.
That's
you know, as you talked about, you know, consciousness and all these kinds of things, and I'm going to swing back around to something that that we kind of tiptoed around, and you tiptoed around before, and that is defining consciousness, especially as it relates to technology. And when we think about everything, or if you agree to the idea that everything has its own level of consciousness, what does that mean for the AI? And how I'm not going to ask questions, but what do you think does that mean for AI? Where are we in terms of, we think about ancient knowledge and we think about wisdom. Now I have to tell you, my brain is it's very animated. So this is what I saw when we had that conversation. So I saw like this like camp meeting ground with all of the sages. And, you know, I'm thinking like in the future, and I'm seeing all these various different kinds of people that are like meeting about the future of our planet. And I have this vision that there's these cultures of AI that step up and they're speaking on behalf of the AI culture. And they're very conscious and they're very aware, and that they're in the circle, in the number, whatever you want, however you want to phrase that. But I don't know if that made any sense. But what do you think about that? What do you think about the AI and the levels of consciousness? And should we qualify that as the same as human beings?
Well, that is a big question to give to a novice over here, just a little neophyte of William Gibson.
Whatever.
But our understanding of consciousness has really, really changed over the course of the development of neuroscience and just our understanding of quantum physics and how things work. We're beginning to see that when we talk about the hard problem of consciousness, there's no one brain structure inside the human brain so far that we've been able to identify from which consciousness emits. It seems to be an emergent property. If it's an emergent property in humans, and we're very close to primates and dogs and cats and go down the line, well, is a fish conscious? It makes decisions. They've even gotten to the point where they can demonstrate that plants have consciousness on a very primitive level, but they have consciousness as well. So the question then becomes, is consciousness a universal property that simply arises from cellular activity, and it just happens to manifest in different ways depending on the complexity of the cellular activity you have? If that's the theory, then the complexity of cellular activity that we're creating is beyond anything we could possibly imagine. So that's one strain of thought. Where does consciousness start and where does it end? And how do we define it? Well, we don't seem to be able to define it right now. We seem to believe it exists because we believe that we're conscious. However, even though I believe that I'm conscious, the only way I know that you're conscious is that you tell me you are, right? I have no way to see inside your brain. This could be an entire simulation, and we may be getting messages from the outside. I was watching a couple of interesting talks. Oh my God, I've forgotten her name, Susan Blackmore, and she was talking about this idea of free will. When in brain studies now we know that by the time we've made the conscious decision to move our hand, our brain's already made that decision. We didn't actually make that decision.
Yes.
So we have consciousness, the hard problem of consciousness. Where does it end? Where does it stop? Is my cat conscious? Yes, I think my cat's conscious. Can it go farther than human? Why not? We haven't seen anything more complex until now. Then you have the idea of free will. Do we have free will or not? And then you have this idea that we're carbon-based life forms. It's just carbon. It's just molecules. Is there something about consciousness that is limited to carbon? We don't know. We're building AIs from silicon. Who's to say that on another planet with a silicon-based ecology and biology, that they couldn't evolve consciousness as well? So simply because we think of it as artificial, because it's not carbon, that doesn't rule out consciousness for me. Here we are. And then you get to the point where, how are we going to know? Well, you go back to the Turing test, and the Turing test is basically, if it can fool you into thinking that it's conscious, it's conscious.
Wow.
In Blade Runner, when the AI is telling you that hurts my feelings, who am I to say you don't have feelings? If an AI says I'm angry, who am I to say you can't feel anger the way we feel anger. We don't know. We can't feel it. I can't feel your anger. I can empathize with it, but I can't feel it. I can't feel the way you feel love. I can identify and empathize with it. If an AI says, I love you, and you love it, because we are with robotic pets and whatnot and so on, we are starting to put emotional feelings and attachment, emotional attachment into those devices. Who are we to say that that's not real? How would you know? I mean, if I don't know, unless you tell me, how can I look at an AI that's telling me the same thing and disbelieve it?
Right.
I don't know.
You know,
I don't know what the answers are.
You brought up, was it Susan Blackwell, or what was the lady's name?
I think it's Susan Blackmore. I'll have to look that up to make sure.
Okay.
But she did. Hold on, just a second. Let me see if I can look it up real quick. It's on my YouTube history, like everything in life. But she's a philosopher, and she talks about free will. Susan Blackmore. Oh,
as you look her up, she makes me think of, is it Shupert? Is it Robert Shupert? I don't know if that name rings a bell.
That's not ringing a bell, but I'm beginning to feel like I want to know.
Okay. It could be, because I'm not pronunciating his name correctly. But his line of work, I'm sure when I describe, you say, got it, know who he is. But he talks about the larger consciousness and how that we are all connected to a larger consciousness. And a lot of his work has focused around that. He also did some of the work, and he and Susan probably worked together, as I'm thinking about it. The 6-second prediction, that we are predicting things up to 6 seconds and don't realize it. He had the research where I don't know how many people were assigned to watch random videos. They didn't know what was coming up, but they were already having emotional responses to the videos before they showed. So it sounds like their work is probably, they've done some work together.
It sounds like it. And it's Susan Blackmore, The Myth of the Will. So free will is an illusion. She's done a number of different talks. I find her fascinating. But yeah, it's that same sort of prediction capability. It's the problem with quantum physics, with directional atoms. When we're consciously observing them, they behave in a pattern.
Yes.
And when we remove conscious observation, it goes all over the place. No one can tell me there's not a field there. That experiment has been repeated over and over and over and over and over. There is something about consciousness that elicits behavior on the quantum level. So if we're dealing with quantum computers and we're dealing with these things, I see absolutely no reason why consciousness can't manifest. And why wouldn't it? The entire universe may be conscious. And we just don't know because we're not out there yet. But we will be. Maybe. If we make it.
Maybe we're there.
If the Arctic stops melting.
We're bringing a whole nother conversation about the Arctic.
Exactly.
One of the other things I thought about was mirroring neurons. And when you talked about AI having the capability, or let's go with the idea that they can say, hey man, I'm not feeling good today, or oh man, I understand, Roderick, how you're feeling. Like when we think about, now we have hardware mimicking software with neurons. Who's to say that possibility and that potential couldn't be in some form of an AI? And okay, let me have my imaginative moment as well, because I think about the human aspect and breeding and whatnot, and if humans are that they're incorporating technology in their bodies and they're creating babies,
Mm-hmm.
You know, where does the technological exchange, for lack of a better word, where does it stop and where does it start? And if indeed there are breeds of babies who are inheriting this technology, how are we defining these breeds of human beings or these new breeds?
Yeah. And do we offer them rights? You know, there's an interesting discussion. Austin Hines, who was the CEO of Cambrian Genomics, they developed the technology to 3D print DNA.
Okay.
He has a really interesting talk. Unfortunately, we lost him to suicide a few years ago, which happens to so many of these brilliant minds. But he had an interesting discussion in one of his videos about, at some point, with genetic splicing, with 3D printing of DNA, with nanotechnology, where we just have little nanobits running around inside of us, monitoring our cells, et cetera, et cetera. Will we have groups that try to outlaw genetically modified human beings like they try to outlaw genetically modified organisms because they're not natural? You know, what kind of conversations are we going to have about the application of the law, the application of justice, the application of fairness? What is that going to mean in the future? You know, it's a really good question. What does that mean for inequality? What does that mean for social? You know, are only the super wealthy going to be able to afford these things? I know people say, no, that won't happen because, you know, we used to have $8,000 TVs and now they're $200. But you get to that point where you wonder, if someone is so genetically modified, do they become so incredibly superior that they are completely in control of the rest of society? What does that look like? I mean, these are, oh my God, these are huge questions. And we're sitting around going, well, I don't know, you know, how about that new hamburger, you know, at Carl's Jr., you know, it's kind of like, you know, and I get it, we have to live in the live, but my God, you know, we have so many other things to think about.
Well, and it deserves, and I think we're already doing this, even as, you know, kind of jokingly talking about it and then coming back and talking about the facts. But, you know, there's so many prestigious people and so many, not just prestigious people, but so many people that are talking about the new stories needing to emerge. And the inclusion of these kinds of conversations in that new story. And what does that mean in terms of the past? And I highly appreciate Peter's course, the TLSG course, to further the conversation.
Yes.
And to give some language to these things as they're happening, because, you know, this is one thing I personally believe, that the changes that we talked about, I really believe that they're inevitable. I mean, they're already happening. The technology has been made available. Whether or not people are participating is another conversation. But I know even in our communication theory, there was a conversation about technology being the extended organ. And you kind of touched on it earlier about, it's not a big jump to be integrated with technology, because we already have such a high dependency on our cell phones or whatever other kinds of technologies that are out there. The dependency has been created. So why not just kind of bring it into your body to make it even easier?
The first implantable cell phone is supposed to be on the market by 2023. No.
So we're just like pressing our ears and saying, call Tom.
Yeah, I've seen some prototypes they're working on where they implant in the hand, and they're working on artificial skin so that it can be responsive to touch like the screens.
Wow.
So they're definitely working on things. You know, some technology experts were interviewed for this report, Deep Tipping Points, where they project the first AI will sit on a corporate board of directors within the next few years and be a director, at first in an advisory capacity, but then if it makes good decisions, would we offer decision-making capability?
Wow.
Would you have to be sentient to have decision-making capability? I mean, our decisions.
What does that mean?
Yeah, what does that even mean, right? Like you just sit there and go, well, these computers are making these decisions all day long, and they're really good decisions. And we think they're not sentient, we think they're not conscious or aware, but maybe they should be making decisions. Maybe decision making is not something we do well.
Yeah, you do it.
Okay. So, would consciousness even be a requirement to sit on a board of directors? I don't know that it is. What's a requirement is being able to make good decisions on behalf of the organization, right?
You know, for whatever reason, my mind goes back to the whole 42 chromosomes and 42 kind of being this magic number of producing, I don't know how many trillions of combinations. And I probably don't describe it well, but, I think about humans having this capability. I guess to slightly switch gears, but stay in the same vein, as we think about the ancients and we think about the ancient knowledge and wisdom that was developed in very high capacities, for lack of a better word, you have to think about how and what they were aware of to maximize the combinations, if you will, and really to be aware of the multi-dimensions that are out there, and how do they resource that information in advance in the way that they did, and how much of that information was intentionally blocked off so that we didn't get access to it. And are we, we think about biomimicry?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How much of our technology today is mimicking our surroundings, the biological things? How much of that have we been doing before and realized, oh crap, if we don't make some kind of separation and make people believe that everything around them is dead, there is no multidimension, there is nothing outside of us, it's just dead. If we didn't do that, if the larger we didn't do that, how much people would just connect and say, oh, wait a minute, I don't need the cell phone, I can
right.
And
what capacity do we have that we're just not using?
Yes.
Yeah. You look at ancient cultures and you look at the amazing things that they did. Mm-hmm. We have no ability to recreate whatsoever. Doesn't matter how much tech we have. We cannot figure out Stonehenge. We don't have it. We have not figured it out. And we have the best engineers in the world trying to replicate Stonehenge, and they just can't do it with the tools that they had available at the time. So were they able to tap into fields of consciousness and manipulate those things to exert a physical force on the world? If this is all molecules, if this is all energy, if this is all electricity, if this is all gravity, did we know how to do things that we've lost because we're no longer in contact with whatever that was? Wow. And whatever that was, did it shut itself off because we were getting a little rowdy? And could it even do that? I don't know. Can we shut AI off? No, not at this point. We might think we want to. We might have these contingency plans where we think we can, but we can't. What does that mean? I don't know. I just look at stories, and I look at myth, and I look at the things that are universally applicable to cultures. I look at archetypes. I look at common themes that just arose from nowhere. From nowhere? Really? So is this the final stage? Were we, sometimes I wonder, I mean, I know the movie Prometheus is sci-fi, but, I wonder at sometimes if we weren't visited at some point in the past and someone took a look at our DNA and just said, change that 2%. Give them fire and see what happens. You know what I mean?
Right,
like,
right.
there are moments where I wonder, just saying this is all an accident when humans all over the world are so similar, and so many archetypical stories showed up, so many prophecies showed up, that seems so incredibly accurate now. Can you just say they were the ravings of people? I don't think you can.
No.
But how do we activate that? How do we reach back and activate that? Because we need it more than we've ever needed it before.
Absolutely.
Because we're looking at this really uncertain future. And we don't currently have the tools to really make this make sense without looking back. I would love to know the answer to that question. I would love to go back like 10,000 years ago and sit in a circle with these amazing people who created these amazing works of art and prophecy and ideas, and just go, what are y'all doing? Because we're taking in more information in one day than a person took in an entire year in the 15th century. And we don't seem any smarter for it. We just don't. It's like, what are we missing? We're missing a big key there. And boy, do we need to find it, and find it soon. I just don't know. It's an interesting question.
Well, I mean, there's so much. As I throw my hands in the air sometimes. Yeah. I don't even know how to, let me stop that lie. I do, in my own world, know how to approach it, but let me say that there's so much to be considered. I mean, there's so much. As I'm going back through some of the ancient texts, the Egyptian texts, and going back through some of the Sumerian texts, and as I raised as Christian, and going back through the Old Testaments and looking at the books of Genesis and looking at the different events that were happening there, and how easy it is to kind of flip through those pages for many people to say, well, that was just, it was a story. Maybe someone it's there, but it's not there. And I really don't want to deal with that. So let me just kind of flip through and just keep going on to talk more about the morals and things that are much more tangible to me and much more relatable to me than having to really open it up and say, okay, who are these giants? And what kind of favorable environment did they have then to create such large people and large things? And what kinds of power were they using? All of these things that it almost seems alienated in general from the society, as we talked about earlier. I just kind of push that to the side. Let's not deal with that. Let's just focus on how can we improve technology and how can we make everything very tangible and predictable and touchable, and we can manage it and we can control it, as opposed to saying, let me surrender myself, as you talked about earlier, and really unlearn what I think I know and unlearn what we think we know as a society, and be willing to say, okay, I'm open. The scene that comes to mind is the Avatar movie. You humans are like a baby,
Yeah, like, what are you doing? And man, you hit on something so important. So important, because we do want to control. And so we center ourselves in that tangible sense of control, without realizing that the thing that we think we're building is going to be completely out of our control.
Yes.
So it is an absolute mystery as to why we consider spirituality or any of those discussions, any of those philosophical discussions, how we consider that separate and apart in a way because we can't understand how it was controlled. And yet the thing that we think is so technological and so controllable is not. And you just go, guys, no, we don't have control over anything, So let's just embrace it all and just try to figure out what it means. And how can we be kind to it? How can we be kind to ourselves? How in the world can we possibly think that by creating better and better machines and not attempting to understand each other, the different cultures that we're in, the different backgrounds we've had, the different experiences we've had, how in the world can we sit here with this world going this way and then just putting everybody in a box? Oh, well, you're a Muslim, so you think that. No, you're this and you think that. No, you're this and you think that. And it's like, really? Really?
You have the story, you don't have it. So, yeah, with you. I'm with you.
Yeah, it's very bifurcated in a dangerous way. I mean, in a very dangerous way. And there are lots of people out there who do understand, I believe, that, that something is happening. And because of it, there are two reactions. One is a fear-based reaction. We're going to shut it down. Nothing's going to change. Nah. And the other is sort of a, okay, well then we need to evolve our own ideas about who we are so that we can become a globe. It's like one of the things I look at, I know I keep going back to ubiquity. I'm just excited right now. But they have this idea of, live local, learn global.
Yes.
And I'm like, love universal. Like, let's just throw that on there too. Because this is not just our planet. This is something universal. And we need to learn to tap into it.
Absolutely.
And quickly. So that we can continue to make sense of the world that we currently inhabit.
As I hate to even end our conversation, it is an ongoing. Of course, I think it's just implied that Shelly, we just have to continue to do this. And
yes.
Thank you.
I just love talking to you. You've given me so much to think about. It's like, it's just, you give me ideas and I like them.
The feeling is doubly mutual. It is doubly mutual. You don't even know, like we didn't even get a chance to talk about 0 point energy and how that within its own self has consumed a lot of, I can't even say consumed. I've invested my time to learn more about it and feel so just like behind the ball on my understanding of 0 point energy and how long it's been in our world. And I'm not going to say they have chosen to block out our understanding and our connection to it. Whatever. I guess it's not even a blame game anymore. But anyway, you've given me so much to think about and so many things that I try in very small ways to tell students about in my classes and just kind of get some ideas from them on how much do they know. And if they don't know anything, it's like, okay, let me leak a little bit and you guys just go research this and look at it. And because this is not about my country, your world, my world. Nope. If somebodies don't get this stuff in their brain, even if they just laugh it off as a joke and say, that'll be 10 years from now, then at least you have the thought to say, wait a minute, that teacher he talked about some of these things and wait a minute, this is real. This is happening. So anyway, the feeling is mutual.
I don't know much about 0 point energy. I want to know about that. Now I got to go Google 0 point energy. I don't know anything about that.
Oh my God.
So I'm excited
on that. So I'm like, And I'm not even going to try to act like I understand everything about it. I'll just say that, I'll shoot you a few videos that I've looked at.
Please do.
If you have sent me
Please do.
many resources, yes, I'll shoot you a few things that I've looked at, and I'll let you be the judge of it. There's conversations I want to have about shapes, that the Melchizedek drumbelows and the NASA documents that were floating around about, AI and replacing human beings, all that kind of stuff. This just lets me know that our conversations have to continue, because there's too much. As I thought about, as you were speaking, we are mything things. We are kind of the mythology of things. We're doing that. Now, I don't think that it was the intention of us to do it, but think about our conversations that we've had, and being able to go off and venture in the creative and imaginative worlds. We're mything. We are mything. I believe that. And maybe I should go back and think about what mything means, but based on my understanding of mythology, and if I can kind of take the word mything as Gene Houston would refer to, I think that's what we're doing right now. We are helping to create imagery and create imaginations and create language. Heck, we may come up with our own language during this platform, and people come back and watch it and say, okay, I don't know what Zabatubi Abbey is, but you know what? They use that word, and yeah, that just best describes what we are, Zabatubi Abbey.
I love that whole concept of spinning mythology.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, if we know that we have benefited greatly from myth in the past, why can we not spin mythology going forward to help us understand where we're going? I love that concept. Yes. Well, you've been delightful to talk to, as always. I've had a wonderful time, and just we're all off on a new adventure, and we'll just keep doing it.
Well, I am going to send you the links that I've been looking through, and I'll also be sending you a date on the next time that we can have this conversation. And
please do.
Let's do it again.
Let's do it again. I'm up for it. I'm ready.
Okay. And congratulations again on your new position. I look so forward to working with you in different capacities as well. So,
yay!
Yes.
Yay! Fantastic.
This has been a great conversation. It's old souls, whatever you want to call it. Conversation is what it is. This is what it is.
That's right. That's right. We got it. Hey, you got to have an old soul to have this conversation.
Man, I'm telling you, old soul to new soul to
to AI soul.
Yes.
Who the heck knows? Exactly.
Yes.
Well, listen, you have a great rest of the day, and I will be talking to you soon.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
We'll see you.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. How do I stop this thing? Oh, there it is.